everyone, welcome back to a new video. Today I'm going to be showing you how I made this Mythical Mermaid paper cut art diorama. For this paper cut art piece, I wanted to do something very magical, so I came up with this little sketch of a giant mermaid in a fish tank in either a museum or some art exhibition, and I thought it could be really interesting and cool, and I could do some really fun things with the scenery and environment of the fish tank. So let's just get right into it. I got about 12 sheets of cardstock, did a 1/2-inch border around them, and I turned this whole project vertically because that is how the drawing is and I think it would be more interesting that way. The first layer I work on is the wall of the aquarium or the museum. I make this first because it will help me plan everything else out later, so it just makes it a lot easier for me. I wanted this wall to look dark, so to do that I stacked 2 sheets of cardstock to create the thickness that I need. And I cut one way lower than the other one to create a little rim around it so that would be lighter and have a little more depth and interest. So I did that, glued the 2 sheets together, and I can move on to the floor. I kept it simple by just cutting out 2 sheets of sketching paper and gluing them on. Then to decorate the floor, I created some really nice potted plants. I wanted this to have the vibe of a really fancy high-end place. So I decided on some bamboo because it just seems more fancy for some reason, but I just cut them out. There's a cool way to make the bamboo texture is to just create the little pieces and just every once in a while cut a little notch into the line, and then it creates that like sectioned look. But these are really easy and fun to cut out, and I made 2 of them. I wanted to add a little bit of shading onto the pot because I felt like the fish tank with the mermaid is going to cast light, so there would be a little bit of shade, so I just did it really simply. And then I went back and added a little bit of details onto the floor so it looks like there's some tiles or panels. It's not just one big blob, and that was really simple. I glued the vases onto the floor layer. And the last thing I created for this foreground is this little informational plaque that will hang on the wall that just kind of has information about the mermaid. You know, I glued it onto the wall and it just adds a little extra detail to this piece, so that was a nice little touch. I wanted everything to kind of frame and point to this mermaid in the middle, so I kind of kept that in mind as I did things. And now I can move on to the mermaid, and this is the exciting part. I created a more detailed sketch of what I wanted the mermaid to look like because in my sketch it was just really simple. I liked the flow of this top, and I had some cool ideas for an ombre effect with the top and the tail. And I originally, as you can see, started cutting this mermaid out of tracing paper because I wanted it to be really pale and to kind of be blended into the environment. So I just did that. I cut out the main shape of the mermaid's body, and then I'm going to layer up this tracing paper for the hair and the areas that I want darker so it creates that contrast. But this was really difficult to do because this tracing paper is so plasticky, and as you can see it's just curling around like crazy, so it was really difficult to layer this, and the glue, when it dried, it showed through and just it was a mess. But I kept going and I added these dark details onto the tail and the face and everything. And I spent a lot of time trying to make it nice. And everything was going pretty okay until I got to the point where I had to do the upper body. If you're enjoying this video so far, then please consider subscribing, liking, sharing. It means a lot. And if you like these kind of magical, fantastical projects, then I have a whole playlist of fantasy light boxes. I'll leave the link down below and up here in the card. So if you like this kind of stuff, then please check out that playlist. Thanks! Since the tracing paper curled so much, the neck and the shoulder angles were really hard to get right, and they look a little bit weird. Like, you can see that the arms are not even, but I try to work with it. At first I wanted to make like these little flippers under the wings so she could swim better, but ultimately it didn't look good because there just wasn't enough contrast with the skin and the hair and everything, and I just ended up really messing it up and it just looked ugly, and I kind of hated it very much. The face also wasn't that nice, and just it didn't turn out. So after all that work, I decided that I'm just going to scrap it and restart. And since the tracing paper is so difficult to work with, I decided to use sketching paper as the base for the body and work from there. And it turned out just so much better, and it was a way nicer result. So I'm glad I made that adjustment. And here is the new one. It's a little hard to see, but it'll look a lot better in the light box. So now with that done, it's time to move on to the second focal point, which is the jellyfish. I looked up lots of reference photos and I found some really pretty ones, but ultimately I came up with my own little design. Here I am sketching it out. I wanted the little tentacles to go a specific way so it looks like they're flowing nicely with the mermaid. I cut out the top of the jellyfish out of sketching paper and I cut little designs and details into it. It was all pretty simple, and yeah, I just quickly made this jellyfish. And I was super happy with how this turned out. These little strands were very difficult to cut out because they were so thin, but I managed, and I cut a few of them and placed them around, and it really brought this jellyfish to life. Since the jellyfish is floating in the water, I had to tape it, unfortunately, to the ceiling, so there's a little bit of tape that shows in the end product, but I don't think it's too distracting. It annoys me a little bit, but I don't think it's a huge deal, so I kept it. And then for the environment, I kept it pretty simple. I used sketching paper just so it would be a little lighter, and I cut out a few layers of coral, different heights, different kinds of coral, different rock formations just to make it a little interesting, and I just cut all these layers out. It was really simple. Then I used my X-Acto knife to cut little details into the coral like this brain, and then I also layered up the sketching paper to add some shading to some areas, and overall it just looked really good. Then I wanted this whole thing to look a lot more lively, so I went and I cut out a bunch more little swarms of jellyfish. I cut out big ones, small ones. I try to have a variety of different sizes and shapes of jellyfish just so it would be more interesting. I cut a bunch of these out. They were really tedious, but I think it was worth it in the end, so I spent a bit of time doing that. Then I glued all these little jellyfish around on different areas of the coral. And the last detail that I wanted is to create a little human to be watching the mermaid like it's watching an art piece in an art exhibition. So I sketched out a human figure. I didn't like how it looked originally, so I kind of made him facing sideways. Then I kind of physically bent his head to kind of look at the mermaid, and I think it turned out fine. It was a little scuffed, but it was okay. Then I glued him in place, looking at the mermaid, and I'm ready to assemble. And now that all my layers are done, I can assemble it. I only had black foam board, so I used that, but I really actually like how it looked with the black, and it brought an extra cool feel to it, so I liked it. And here it is with the lights. I went with 2 lights. I decided on this pink and blue because I just liked those 2 colors together. It just added more to this piece than without it, so I really liked this color combo and how this light box turned out. I'm happy with the mermaid, I'm really happy with the jellyfish and the background, and the guy in the front is also kind of cute, so. And overall, it just turned out really well, and I'm super proud of it. Also, if you are interested in purchasing this light box or any of my other light boxes, then please reach out to me on email or Instagram. So if you enjoyed this paper art piece, let me know what you think down below. And again, if you enjoyed this video, check out my playlist of other fantasy light boxes. So yeah, I will see you next time. Bye!